and welcome to the ePerfomance for Employees presentation and demonstration. My name is Carol Jenkins with the IS Training Department. Our training objectives for today include a process overview and, of course, a discussion about the advantages of this new system. We're also going to look at the different sections and some terminology and get familiar with how this new system will be used. And, of course, we need to be aware of our deadline. The deadline for completion this year is July 31st. And, of course, resources. Who are you going to reach out to? Who can you call or email to get clarification to a question so that you can meet that deadline of July 31st? This screen tends to be the scariest for most people as we look at this new system and look at adopting and moving over into the new PeopleSoft HCM ePerformance module. And the thing that we want to remember as we look at this slide is that we're currently doing all of these same steps. It looks like a lot when we look at it on this one slide, 13 steps, that certainly seems like a lot. But again, we're currently doing that in our paper and somewhat online system, and it's just a matter of moving these activities over into the new module. As you'll notice that we do have 4 items highlighted for the employees. So again, these are things that we're currently already doing. The only difference that we do see is that now PeopleSoft is going to require that these are done in order and that each of the items does have to be completed. With a paper process, it is possible for us to skip something or do it out of order. But in PeopleSoft, these things do have to be done in the order as designed. Step number 2 is for the employee and the manager to simply establish the criteria. What will the employee be evaluated on? This can be done as a employee or the manager or a combined effort. This will depend upon your department's process. One of the things we want to also understand is we're not changing anyone's departmental process. We simply have a new system that will allow us to embrace all the different processes and all the different needs across UTMB. So if in my area the manager has indicated they're going to put in most of the criteria, but perhaps I'm going to add a professional development goal, then that would be something I would want to do in step 2. Once we have established the criteria, that then kicks off the evaluation phase. And the thing that will be different for us in 2015 is that we will be doing the evaluation across the entire year. Currently, and again this year as we do this switch over into the new system, we're trying to recall and evaluate and jot down and document all of the things that have happened over the last 360 some days. When we go forward, this becomes a living document. And as soon as we establish the criteria at the beginning of a new fiscal year, we will begin documenting our progress, which is part of the evaluation process. Now, at the end of the time frame, whether that's the end of the fiscal year or an end of a 6-month or 3-month evaluation time frame, then we would be rating ourselves. So again, evaluating and then rating at the end of that time frame. So we also have other participants that might be involved. Again, not changing a department's process, but this is something that right now we do have areas that are utilizing other participants in the evaluation process. The nursing area has a very strong peer evaluation component, and we also have people at UTMB that report to more than one individual. They have a dual reporting. So we want to have a way that we can embrace that and document that and bring that into the formal evaluation document. So this other participant, step number 4 and step number 6, is where that comes into play. We do need to make a note of our process here that step number 1, if I'm the employee and you log in and you want to begin the process and you want to do step number 2 or 5 or so on, the manager must create the document. That is the very first step that occurs in this process. And we do have to remember that that is the manager that must begin that. So as an employee, then I can do steps 2 and 5 and so on. As we progress through this evaluation process, I'm doing a self-evaluation. The manager will then, at the end of that review period, be looking at the employee's evaluation. if there were other participants, looking at their evaluations as well, and bringing that information as relevant and as appropriate into the final manager evaluation document. This is the document that becomes then part of my HR file. That manager evaluation does have to go up to their manager to be approved. Then the manager can make it available and discuss that evaluation with the employee. The employee has the opportunity at each of these subsequent stages to make comments. We can review it online. Hopefully we're also having a face-to-face conversation between the manager and the employee. But we do have that option to look at it online, make those comments as we go through the process. Step number 12 is very important for employees this year, and that is because we are moving to an electronic signature. HR will not accept signatures on paper this year. It must be an electronic signature. Please also note that if you are in an area or you know someone who's in an area where computers are not readily available, they're not something somebody's sitting at a desk all day long, that HR will work with folks in those areas to make sure that they do have a computer that's available to make sure that we get that e-signature in a timely fashion. The very last step is something that the manager does again. It's that very last step that finalizes the document, and then it becomes part of the permanent HR file. This screen simply shows a flowchart. It's the very same information. Some folks prefer a list format, others prefer a flowchart. It is the same information, a little bit smaller to read on this particular screen, however. We, of course, always want to know why. Anytime we make a change over to a new system, we want to know why are we making that change. Some people are always going to think that the old system was better. This new system is really going to be an improvement for us at UTMB because we have such a diversity in the types of positions. We have nursing, we have faculty, we have management, we have staff, and we've got different needs because of those different types of positions throughout the evaluation process. This new ePerfomance module will give us that flexibility, but also the ability to have all of those evaluations, the other participants, all of that in one system. So this really is going to be a benefit to us. We also believe that because this becomes a living document beginning in 2015, that it provides us a much better opportunity for managers and employees to have that conversation, to have that communication, to have better documentation throughout the year, making that a more relevant evaluation at the end of that time frame. How are we going to access the new ePerformance module? Well, from the UTMB homepage, the most common way that most of the employees will be accessing that would be from the employee self-service paycheck link. That is something that most employees are familiar with, having looked at their paycheck. And we do also, of course, have the PeopleSoft link also on the home page. If you are using the PeopleSoft link, please make sure that you do access through the HCM or Human Capital Management aspect of PeopleSoft. Once you have navigated into PeopleSoft, you can see we have our navigation here at the top of the page. From the main menu to self-service, performance management, my performance documents, and then current documents. Once you arrive at current documents, you'll see your document listed here. We are using an example of the general PM document template. We'll talk more about the templates as we go through, but this link would be dependent upon the type of template that was used for your particular evaluation. The nice thing about PeopleSoft is that once you've navigated to that location and followed this path, it will actually remember that, and it automatically stores it in your favorites under recently used. So the next time you navigate in, you can simply shortcut over to your favorites, recently used, and go directly to the current documents. I mentioned the different templates and document types, and we do have 4 different document types and then a couple more templates as well. Because we have these different types of positions, faculty, postdocs, the staff, leadership, supervisory, executive, all of these different types of positions need slightly different types of evaluation documents. So by using these templates and document types, we have the ability to customize that. Again, in our examples for this presentation, we are looking at the general PM document type. So when I clicked on the link, it brought me into this window, and you can see that the Establish Evaluation Criteria is the first step, and the other steps will become available as we complete each of these items. Again, because it is PeopleSoft, these are sequential, we must do the items in order. If the manager has already gone in and established some criteria, you would see an Edit button instead of the Start button. You'll notice, again, dependent upon the type of template being used, these sections might differ slightly. This particular template, the General PM template, has 3 sections at the top. Our key performance goals are where we would enter SMART goals, as we typically refer to those. And the technical competency section, section number 2, is where we would enter the general tasks for this position. What are the everyday tasks, the competencies, if you will, that are required for this position? What are the everyday things that must be done? We also notice that there's a section for citizenship. The citizenship section will be in everyone's evaluation document, regardless of the type of template being used. And this is new for us. The citizenship in the past was incorporated into the other items, but this year this is a distinct and separate section. The citizenship section is the 5 UTMB core values. You'll notice also that this section has a distinct weight. Section 1 in this case is worth 60% and Section 2 worth 20%. We'll talk more about those weights as we go forward with the presentation as well. So if I need to add a goal or need to add a competency, I'm simply going to click on the link with the plus sign here. Either the plus or the link works. And then I could add items. We do have a choice of 3 different methods of adding those items. You can add a predefined item, which would mean that you're going to bring that in from the UTMB catalog of items that was already identified and provided to HR. Or you can add your own, and that would probably be the most common. Or in some cases, you might actually copy from the manager's document. That would be if an area has a shared goal and perhaps it's already identified on the manager's document as something that would be shared then to everyone in that department. As you enter the item, again, we do want to make sure if it is in Section 1 in the key performance goals that we are using the SMART methodology, as you can see up there in the upper right. And we're going to put a title and a description that will help us identify that as we go forward. The description does need to embrace that SMART methodology so that we know at the end of that time frame if we actually completed it or if perhaps we exceeded it. So we need to make sure that that description is very good and very meaningful to the evaluation process. The small book icon here that we have circled in red, that is our spell check icon. You can also do a copy and paste. So if perhaps you want to do a grammar check and you like the functions of Microsoft Word, you could put that in Microsoft Word, do a grammar check and a spell check over there, and copy and paste your description into the ePerformance document. Once we've got this identified and created to our satisfaction, we're going to click the Update button, and that brings it into that section. You'll notice that we have some icons here. We have a little notepad that would take me to the performance notes, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. We also have the pencil and trash can that you may be familiar with from other systems. The pencil is how we could go back in and further edit this description or title. Perhaps we have misspelled something or we want to change that title slightly, and that's how we would get to that point. If perhaps you've put this in the wrong section or the goal is no longer relevant, you can use the trash can and delete that particular item completely. Notice that we also have a weight listed here. The weights are something that this particular time around for fiscal year 2014, most areas are leaving those as zeros. That does not mean that this does not have any weight and doesn't have any value. What it means is that we're going to let PeopleSoft equally weight the items within that section. So if you had 2 key performance goals, PeopleSoft would automatically weight each of those as 50%. You can put in specific weights, If you do put in specific weights, you need to make sure that within each section they do add up to 100%. Notice also that it is documenting who created the document and the date and time that it was created. And this is creating that specific item. You do want to remember in PeopleSoft to save frequently. There is a save button at the top of the page and also a save button at the bottom of the page. But it is very, very important that you remember to click that save button. There is no auto-save feature within PeopleSoft. So it's critical if you're adding a comment, adding any goals, adding competencies, that you do remember to click the save button. There is an automatic timeout feature, however, in PeopleSoft, and actually that's a UTMB security feature. In all of our systems, if you are inactive for 10 minutes, it will automatically try to time you out, and you'll lose all of the information that you had been working on at that point if you had not saved. So please do remember to find the save button, top of the page or bottom of the page, to make sure that you save all of that information. The technical competency section works the very same way. We would click on the plus sign for that section. It gives us a choice of 3 different methods, and again, the most common will probably be adding our own item. And again, these items are related back to the responsibilities of the position of that job. And so theoretically, those should be tying back to the job description. We're going to again put in a title and a meaningful description using our spell check if necessary, clicking the update button, and that brings it into that section. Reviewing it, editing if necessary. The citizenship section, you'll notice that there is no pencil and there is no trash can because the core values of UTMB cannot be edited and they can't be thrown away. So those are things that are coming in automatically as part of the template. There's nothing further that you need to do at this stage. When we get to the evaluation phase, then you will, of course, rate yourself, and the manager will rate you as well on the citizenship items. You may have noticed that there is no rating available at this phase because we are in that first phase and we are simply establishing the criteria. Once we've completed the criteria, that kicks off the evaluation step. We do again have our little notepad, which means we could shortcut over to those performance notes. And again, we'll talk more about those in just a moment. An action plan. An action plan is something that may be new to some of us. An action plan in the past has tended to have a negative connotation to it. We thought of it as just a performance improvement. But as we go forward, everyone will have a developmental action plan. You establish some goals in Section 1. How are you going to achieve those goals? What is the action plan for the employee to achieve those goals? So it is a good thing for us to put that document, put that plan in action in the performance evaluation, and you'll see that become available, and there will be boxes available when we get to the evaluation phase. Again, right now we're establishing the criteria. Next will be the evaluation, and that's when you will have the availability to have input on the action plan itself. Notice that this is where we see one of our save buttons. Again, save buttons at the top and the bottom. And also notice that we've got the little printer icon and the little envelope icon. The printer icon you're probably familiar with from other programs as well, and that is how you could print a hard copy of the evaluation document. You'll see those printer icons throughout the entire process of the evaluation document, so you can do that at any time. The envelope does connect you with an email. However, it is a little cumbersome, and it's several steps in just to get to that email to actually send that. And I think for most of us, if we want to send an email to the manager saying, I have entered my goal and now I'm ready for you to do your next step, we're probably going to go over to Outlook and simply open an email over there. However, do be aware that PeopleSoft is busy sending automatic emails as well. So as we're proceeding through those steps, PeopleSoft is recognizing that when we complete different steps, and it is sending auto emails to the next person, notifying them that they have the next action now. This screen is rather important because it helps us understand what's happening behind the scenes. When we are doing the established criteria phase, that first phase that we've been talking about so far, the manager and the employee are both working on the same document. However, once the manager completes the established criteria phase, and that is a specific button, they're going to click the complete button on that established criteria phase. That now kicks off for the evaluation phase. And during the evaluation phase, the manager, the employee, and any other participants are actually working on their very own electronic document, being able to see the criteria, but the evaluation, the rating, all of those comments are on their own private document. It remains a private document until I click the complete button on my self-evaluation. So again, in 2015, I will be working on providing comments and tracking my progress and putting information in all year long, starting that evaluation process. In June of 2015, then I will rate myself and finalize all of my comments and click the complete button. At that point, when I click the complete button, my manager will now be able to see my ratings and my comments. So that complete button signals to the manager and it closes that particular action and step. The other participant is having the same experience. They are providing feedback, they're providing input, and they're rating the employee. And until they click the complete button on their side, again, that is a private document. The employee cannot see the other participants cannot see the employees. Same is true with our previous system. You could never look over the other person's document. Only the manager has the ability to see both the employee and the other participants. HR, of course, also has that ability. So as the employee and other participants complete theirs and the manager works on theirs, the manager compiles then that final document. Although the employee and other participants' documents do remain in PeopleSoft forever, the manager's evaluation, that final document, is the one that becomes the one that goes in my HR file. That is the final actual evaluation document. So during the course of that time, if you are adding attachments, adding goals perhaps, you do want to be aware that it is the manager document that is the final version. So I've mentioned the self-evaluation. Again, this becomes probably more interactive and more involved for us in 2015. Right now it is a bit of a crunch, and we're having to really crunch down and get everything done in time to meet that July 31st deadline. But beginning in 2015, this is an ongoing process for both the employee and the manager. We're adding attachments. We're using these things called performance notes. So a performance note is a free-form text comment. I can go in there and I can write anything. It's just a note that remains inside of PeopleSoft HCM, again, a private note, that then at the end of the evaluation time, I can easily review those notes and bring them in simply with a click, making that evaluation at the end of the year, when I'm compiling that and reviewing an entire year's activities, much easier, much more accurate, and more relevant, so that the evaluation is a better description of my achievements over that time frame. We can add attachments. You can add pretty much any attachment. We've tried several different types of documents. It seems to do just fine. There's no limit to the number of attachments. So this could be an e-gem card. It could be other evaluations. It could be other information that's relevant to your progress or accomplishments over that time frame. One of the things we do want to recommend is when you are going in to do the self-evaluation and you're looking at these different sections now, is to use these two little buttons here, these two links, the expand all and the collapse all, to your advantage. The very first time that you go in, you may find it advantageous to use the collapse all. That's going to give you a much simpler view. You can get a feel for how this is laid out. And then when you're actually getting ready to make those comments, make sure that you've got everything documented, you may choose to use the expand all because you don't want to miss anything. When you begin this process, you will notice that we only have 3 types of ratings. We have 3 as opposed to the previous 5. This was a decision by UTMB leadership, and this means that that middle category, that meets category, is now much broader, and we do have to expand that definition so that we understand that it's going to carry a broader range of accomplishments. We may be very close to an exceeds, but not quite, or you may be at the lower end of it, but still meeting. So we do need to broaden our definition, and because we are doing that, we also need to use those comments to our advantage. Both the employees and the managers should be utilizing the comment box to be able to provide that feedback and better describe where within that very broad category the employee's accomplishments fell. The writing tools link, that is how you would get back to those performance notes and easily, with a simple click, bring those comments directly into the evaluation. Again, saving a lot of typing or copying and pasting, it's simply an easy click. And notice we do still have the pencil and the trash can, so even at this phase, we can be adding additional goals or editing and changing a goal that was established at the beginning of the process. We, of course, still have our spell check, the little blue book to the side of the comment box, and again, you could use that to your advantage. Or if you do have something that you need to spell check and grammar check, put it over in Word and do a copy and paste. Our weight, again, probably this year, we are leaving most of those as zeros in most areas. Again, if your area is choosing to put those specific weights in, do make sure that the entire section does add up to 100. We believe in 2015 we'll probably start taking advantage of more of these wonderful features that we do see in the new system when we can take more time with them. This may be something where you have 2 or 3 goals and one of them is especially important and you want to identify that and document that. And again, documenting at the beginning of the evaluation so that when you establish the criteria, both the employee and the manager are aware that that particular goal is the one that carries the additional weight. When I'm putting in my self-ratings, you will notice that there is a little calculator icon, and you can use that to calculate each section. Or when you click the Save button, it will calculate all of the items at that point. And there's also a link at the bottom, a button at the bottom that says Calculate All Ratings. So any of those will help you to see the total evaluation rating based upon those percentages that are pre-described, preset in the system for each section. Again, in the general PM document, we see that there is a 60% weight for the key performance goals. Those are the SMART goals, 20% for the other 2 areas. If you are on a different type of template or document type, you may see slightly different percentages for these sections that are in that template. Again, I mentioned the attachments. The attachments are down at the bottom, and you can add those attachments as soon as you are in the evaluation phase. And again, these can be added by the manager or the employee. As soon as you add it, it is available to be viewed by either party. Whereas my comments are private until I click the complete button, the attachments are available to view immediately. We do want to point out the Save versus the Complete button at the bottom of the page. Again, I'm saving, I'm saving, I'm saving. I'm doing that every time I'm in there. I'm adding a comment, adding an attachment. I'm using the Save button. However, when you get to the end of this process, and it's the end of that time frame, you do want to use the Complete button to finalize your self-evaluation. Once you click the Complete button, it is now available to the manager to view. And do remember, these documents will always remain separate. The manager can view the employee evaluation, self-evaluation, but cannot edit it, and likewise. Okay. PeopleSoft will double check with you once you click the Complete button. It will say, "Are you sure?" And you'll tell it yes and click the Complete button again. So, meanwhile, I'm working on my self-evaluation. The other participants working on their evaluation, if they're involved. You can have up to 10 other participants as manager participants, and you could have up to 10 peer evaluations as well. It is important that you do your nominations after you have follow up on those, after you establish the criteria. The criteria has to be completed before you can submit the nomination. Then the person on the other end will get an email and they will have to go into PeopleSoft and accept the nomination. At that point, then they will be able to provide their feedback, click the complete button on their side, and the manager will be able to see that and incorporate their feedback into that final document. You can see as we're progressing along, the different things are turning into a view or a start, and this is the screen that we'll see all these various steps. Again, they have to happen in order, and so we can see our criteria was completed. It's a view only. We have finished the self-evaluation, and it is now turned into a view only. And then the manager evaluation is evidently being worked on because that has been in a view status as well. That has to be marked by the manager as available for review before I can actually see it. So that is something to be aware of. It may say view, but if you have any problem actually accessing it, the manager has to officially identify that it is available for review. Once I go in and click on that, again, I'm going to review all of the items using my expand all to make sure that I do not miss anything. I can provide more comments, and I need to remember to save those comments. Again, the spell check is there for your convenience. You can print this out, and so on. All of those same icons will remain available throughout the entire process. Then we have our face-to-face conversation. We discuss the evaluation, and now I'm going to provide my eSignature, and that I will do by clicking the Acknowledge link. So I click the Acknowledge link. It's going to double check with me and say, do you really want to acknowledge? And it's going to give me a couple of options, and then I'm going to do that final one, and it will say you have now provided your eSignature. You want to make sure at this stage that you put any final comments before you click the Acknowledge Review. So the process here is we have it identified. I'm going to expand all to make sure I see everything. I'm going to enter my final comments. I'm going to save those comments, and then the Acknowledge Review. Because again, once you've clicked that, it is finalized, and it goes to the manager to mark it as complete. We've mentioned the performance notes. These performance notes really are going to be a great opportunity for us, both managers and employees, to be documenting progress throughout the course of the year. It's always been challenging for us to try to remember 360 days. What did I do? I can't remember. Does that happen this year, last year? When was that? What were the details? The performance notes will give us the opportunity to immediately, while it's fresh on our mind, go in and add a note. It is free-form text. We'll demonstrate that at the end here today, and you'll see how those performance notes work. And it's a very simple process. Add a new note, and you type in your information. Do make sure, of course, saving. And also, you may be familiar, you may have heard someone mention in the past, when you're in PeopleSoft, don't ever click the back button. That's the giant backwards arrow that you see at the top of the page, typically when you're in any sort of internet window. And you want to remember that when you're in PeopleSoft, you never click that back button, that backwards arrow. When you're in PeopleSoft, you must find a link, such as we have circled here, return to. And you'll always have a way that you can return to a previous page. Or that navigation at the top, you could always go back and start at main menu, self-service, and so on. But you do want to make sure that you don't use that back button, because it will most likely kick you out of PeopleSoft and, again, probably lose everything that you were working on up until that point. Of course, everyone wants to know, how do we get access to it? Well, you already have access to it. As an employee, you already have that access. The managers already have their access. It's called a dynamic role, which simply means if they meet a certain condition, which is if they have direct reports, they automatically have the manager role. Then their manager, the one that's identified that the documents route to for approval, that's already set up as well as automatic. The nominees, that's a nomination process, and you can actually nominate anyone at UTMB, so you do have to be careful that you're nominating the correct person. The only role, the only activity that would perhaps require any additional security is if your department is utilizing one of your departmental admin staff, a support staff, to actually go in and do any of the activities, such as that very first step, creating the document. A lot of areas are looking at that as an option, that their admin could simply do that first step to create the document so that then the managers could go in and add the criteria, the employees could add the criteria, and so on. If your support staff person is going to be doing that, or if that is you, that is an additional security role that is requested in Tivoli. So we do have a screenshot of what that item is here. So this year's a crunch, we know. We appreciate everybody's patience and determination to get this done. But as we go forward in 2015, this is going to be a much simpler, a much more nice flow to the process. And August and September, we'll be going in as soon as we finish through this one. August and September, we're going to go in and establish the criteria. We'll do the create, establish criteria, and then we'll be able to use those performance notes and begin documenting and adding attachments throughout that entire time frame, so that when we get to June and July of 2015, again, we simply would review our performance notes, review those attachments that we'd been putting in, and bring in the relevant information into that final evaluation document with a simple click. July 31st will continue to be the deadline going forward every fiscal year for us to have all of the reviews completed. We do have some resources. We've got two different places that we've got resources stored for you. On the My Training page, we've got a great many things, including this presentation. So if you wish to print out this presentation for your reference, we do have that on the My Training page. Also something called the Employee Quick Guide. I'll point out both of those today during our demo. And on the HR page. The HR page includes a video of the manager presentation. They also have videos of the earlier presentations that they did that discuss best practices for the evaluation process, and we'll look at where those are located as well. And then we will do our demo. So let's take a look. So from the UTMB homepage, we have a lot of resources on the My Training page. So if I scroll down a little bit, on the left-hand side, we see the link to My Training. And on the My Training page, in this left panel, you'll notice a link to PeopleSoft HCM. We'll click on the PeopleSoft HCM link. And that will typically open up a new window or a new tab depending upon your computer. And we're looking for the ePerfomance section. We currently have this listed at the bottom because that's what everyone is looking for. We wanted to make it easy to find. At some point it will move up here in alphabetical order. I'm going to click on the plus sign to open up that section. And if I'm an employee, I'm looking in the plus sign there. And this is the overview presentation that you've just watched. And this is the Employee Quick Guide. The Employee Quick Guide is exactly that. It gives you navigation to do each of the tasks and gives you just very simple, easy to follow instructions for how to navigate. We, of course, have information for the department admins, the managers, and the second level managers as well. All right. Also on the UTMB homepage, on the Human Resources page, so I'm going to click on Human Resources this time. And on the right side of their page, they have an ePerformance link. They also have these presentations, Preparing for Your Performance Appraisal and Effective Performance Management. These are presentations that they did about a month ago, maybe 6 weeks now, and these are the best practices. This is information for the employee and for the manager that is providing the best practices, the approach that UTMB uses for doing performance appraisals. The ePerfomance page, if I click on that, and on the ePerfomance page, they have a lot of items here. They've got an overview, login instructions, the workflow. On the right-hand side, they've got FAQs, and they also have a manager toolkit and an employee toolkit. And under the manager toolkit is a recording of the video, and that's also where the employee toolkit contains recording of this video. All right, so a lot of good resources that are available to you. And now we're going to do our demo. I am going to be logging in as an employee. Okay, so as an employee, again, typically I would log in from the UTMB homepage. And again, the most common approach is probably going to be coming in through the Employee Self-Service Paycheck link on the top left of the UTMB homepage. From the main menu, I would then go to Self-Service, Performance Management, and I have 3 choices here. Other performance documents would be where you would navigate if you had been nominated as an other participant. Performance notes, notice those, we're going to go back to those in just a moment. And my performance documents. We'll look at my performance documents first. And here you have a choice of current documents or historical. Of course, this is our first year using the ePerformance, so it's only a current document. But when we look in 2015 and subsequent years, you will only see one item in your current, and the other from the previous years would then automatically be in your historical documents section. So I'm going to click on my current documents. Now I mentioned that you would only have one item in here, but because this is a training simulation and a demonstration, we do have 4 different items in here because I have 4 different examples that we're going to demonstrate. The first example that we want to demonstrate is adding a goal. So again, this could be a professional development goal, SMART goal, something that is a goal for you specific to your evaluation. So I'm going to click on the link, and I see a Start button. It's the only option that I have for the established criteria, so I'm going to click Start. And again, our Expand All and our Collapse All. Your very first time in, it may be nice to do Collapse All, and that gives you a nice, easy view of how this document is laid out. And you can see, because we are using the General PM document, these are the sections that we have. Again, those are going to vary depending on the template being used for your position. I could open one section at a time, or I can do Expand All. When I do Expand All, it ensures that I'm not going to miss anything. I can see that my supervisor has already put in an item to increase hand hygiene compliance, but we've had that conversation and I'm going to add a goal. So I'm going to click on the Add Key Performance link, and you can see I have my choices. I'm going to add my own item and tell it Next. Now, you can begin typing and simply put in the item there, or as I mentioned earlier, you might have already typed something over in another document, and you could copy and paste. Especially if you are concerned about your grammar or spelling, you might want to put it in a Word document just long enough to make sure that it is all correct so that when it comes over here, everything is perfect. This blue book here is going to be a spell check only. It is not going to be a grammar check. Okay, so once I've got it in there and I'm pleased with that, I'm going to click the Update button. and now that item has been added to that section. Again, we're leaving the weights 0. Our departments talked about it, and this year we're leaving them as 0. 2015, we've agreed we're going to assign some weight so that we can identify which items are more important. Perhaps increasing e-learning options is more important in our particular department than increasing the hand hygiene. That would be a departmental decision. You notice also that this one is editable. This one is not because it came from the catalog. Okay, so slightly different options because I did create this one, or the manager, if the manager had created it from scratch, it would still be editable. But because it came from the catalog, you can throw it away, but you cannot edit it. As we scroll down, we can review the technical competencies. We could add additional technical competencies, and we can review the citizenship sections. Again, remember, at this point, there is no rating. We are simply establishing the criteria. We cannot rate ourselves yet. So once I've completed this and I've reviewed everything, I'm going to locate the Save button either at the top or the bottom. Click Save. It's going to show you saved at the upper right very briefly, and then that little icon goes away again. But it does provide us with a confirmation statement, which is very helpful. Once I've saved that, that's all I can do at this point, and I'm probably going to send an email to my manager saying I got it in, I put my goal in the system, and I've saved it, it's there, and now they can proceed with their next step. Okay. Again, this is the back button at the top left. We are going to never ever click on that giant back button up there at the top. If I want to navigate around within PeopleSoft to a previous page, I'm going to use these links such as Return To, or navigate across the top with these other menu items. I'm going to return to the document detail, return back one more page, and you can see it brings me back eventually to that previous page. Our next example is putting in a performance note and then bringing that into that document. Okay, so I'm going to navigate to my performance note, and again, slightly different navigation. I'm going to go Performance Management, Performance Notes, so you can see I can navigate right there on the top. Performance Notes, and add a new note. The very first time in, you're not going to have any other options. I'm going to add a new note. And again, you might have something that you've already put over in Word simply because you want to make sure that it's spelled correctly. Or you could be simply typing it free-form text. Personal preference. Again, these notes are private, but if it is something that you think you might eventually bring into the performance document, into that evaluation at the end, then having it in good grammar and good spelling would be important. So I've got that in there. It's a good description. Again, it's documenting my progress on a particular item or something that happened. Perhaps it's a demonstration, something that happened, a scenario that happened that's going to be important when you rate yourself on citizenship, on compassion or integrity or lifelong learning, things of that nature. So again, these performance notes can be used on any of those types of things, any of these items that you will be evaluated on at the end of the time frame. I'm going to find my Save button. Again, saved very, very briefly, and then that goes away. There is no confirmation statement on this page, and so you do want to note that. And then I'm going to return to the previous page, and there's my note. So there's my proof that it did save it. If I wanted to further edit it, simply click on the link, go back in, make my edits, save it again. Okay, so I would continue doing that over the course of the year, adding notes. So that subject or that title is something that you would want to make something that you could identify later on to pick the correct note as you're doing the evaluation phase later on. So when I am at the end of the time frame, And now I want to do my self-evaluation. Now I'm ready to rate myself and bring in all those comments to document my achievements. I'm going to click on the link. You can see here that the criteria is now in a view-only status. And now it's ready for me to do my self-evaluation. And again, in this case, the expand all is probably a good idea. If you do not rate yourself on a particular item, if you accidentally miss an item, it will not let you know. PeopleSoft does not mind if you skip a section. Okay, so that is an advantage to doing the expand all, so you can go carefully through each item and make sure you have provided that input. Now the ratings are available. Again, we're in the evaluation phase, so those are available, and I believe that I exceeded. Anytime that we state that we've exceeded, we should be able to provide documentation for that. I want to bring in that performance note, so I'm going to use my Writing Tools link, find additional content, performance notes, go get my performance notes, and search. Now you could put in some dates. If this was at the end of an entire year, you might want to look for things that happened in the first half of the year or the second half of the year. I don't remember when I put that note in there, so I'm just going to do a wide open search, and there's my item. You do have instructions on how to do the performance notes and how to bring these in your Employee Quick Guide, which is again available on the My Training page. If I like that comment, I'm going to select it, add to the comment box, save and return. And now that comment that I put in way back, midpoint in the year, documenting that progress, that accomplishment, with a couple of clicks has already been brought in. I can edit it. If I wanted to change some of the language in there, if I wanted to add some more information, I could certainly do that. Okay. I'm going to make sure and find that Save button. Okay, saved, and there's my confirmation. Please, we cannot emphasize this enough. I know that if you're new to PeopleSoft, if you're making comments in here, if you're working in the system, please remember to save frequently. Okay, so I've got that one in. I'm going to go through and do all my other ones, and I'm going to put my comments. And again, I'm making sure that I've got all of these in here. I'm not missing anything. I'm not skipping something. I'm reading through them carefully, of course. I can calculate along the way. And it says for this section, okay, so it's calculating as it goes, based upon these ratings that I've given myself. Okay. All right. So again, meets. Notice you've got writing tools next to all of these, so this is very, very convenient. All of those writing notes, again, regardless of what the item was, but those titles will help you when you're making the performance notes. Maybe this is a lifelong learning, number 1, lifelong turning example, number 2. All those different things will help you when you get ready to bring these into that final document. Okay. You can provide summary comments. You can provide an overall comment. And notice as we go along and calculating and saving, if we put in additional things, it changes it as we've completed additional items. We can add attachments. And again, those attachments, as soon as you add them, they are available to be viewed by both parties. Okay, there's my calculate all ratings if I hadn't already done so, and another save button. Okay, saved, confirmation. When I am through with my self-evaluation, I've put in all my comments, I've done all the ratings, and I'm ready to submit this to my manager for their view-only access. I click the complete button. It says, are you sure? Because when you click this complete button, you're turning it over to them. It says, it's been marked complete. You're done. Now it has been turned into a view-only document. So again, remember, this is one of the big changes from our previous or current system that we've been using, in that the employee and the manager have their own separate documents. The employee cannot overwrite what the manager has said, and the manager cannot overwrite what the employee has put. These are two distinct documents, and you will be able to view each other's comments, but you cannot change each other's comments. This is a big change for us, and we believe that it's a good change. The manager review, hopefully they have started it, and we'll be getting together shortly. And I'm going to return to the previous documents. So now, example number 3, and you can see the status of these documents as we've been going through. Those first 2 are still in progress because there's still things that are happening there. But this third example, the manager has marked it as available for review. That tells me that the manager has finished their review, their manager has approved that document, and now it's available for me. So I'm going to take a look at it. And I'm going to view that manager document. I'm certainly going to do my expand all because I want to see every comment that my manager has put in here. And the first thing I notice that the manager has put exceeds as well, and there's my comment. They were able to bring that in just as easily as I did from the performance notes. They looked at my self-evaluation. They said that's a great documentation of that achievement. Clicked the box, brought it in. So again, a lot of nice little shortcuts of bringing in those statements as we go along instead of recreating those statements. As we go along, I can see my manager comments. Got a total for that section of exceeds. Looking at the comments, and notice that these are not editable. Okay, I can only view their comments. So I'm going to review all of those carefully. And then at the end of this is where I'm going to put my comments. Okay? I'm going to make sure and save my comments. It says saved. There's my confirmation. And I noticed when I was down at the bottom that there was an attachment. Okay, so there's an eGem card. Okay, again, as many attachments as you wish. These can also be deleted by either party. So again, if this was something that you wanted to make sure that this was brought in, you want to double check that it is there. I might want to print it. If I have finished reviewing and I've put my comments in there, again, I might want to go over to Outlook and email my manager and say I've already looked at it online. Looking forward to our meeting on Friday, whatever that situation might be. If you're not sure, save it again. Okay, you have saved. Okay. So our last step is I return to the document and return one more time. I'm at this little home navigation page for our 4th example. And our 4th example, notice that it says that the review has been held. So we met, the manager has marked it that the review was held, and so now my step is next, and I need to provide my eSignature. So I'm going to click on the link, and it says, are you just viewing it, or do you wish to go in and acknowledge, make some comments, and so on? I do want to do that. Acknowledge. I'm going to expand all. I'm going to review all of these comments again. I'm probably going to take special care to review the manager's last comments at the bottom. Okay, because the manager may have added some additional comments after we met. Remember, each time this goes back and forth between the manager and the employee, we always have another opportunity to put in comments. This is my final opportunity to put in comments. I'm going to save them and make sure they're saved, and then provide my e-signature by clicking the Acknowledge Review button. It says, "Are you sure?" And we have our statement that says, "I am aware of the contents of this document." It does not mean you agree with it. It doesn't mean you disagree with it. It simply means I am aware of it. Hopefully this was a great evaluation. Hopefully this was your best evaluation ever. But the e-signature is simply saying I am aware of what was in here. I'm going to tell it OK. And now all of these items become view only. From an employee perspective, I have now finalized the document. This was the last step for me. And now I'm going to look forward to the next year. I'm going to return to the documents and so on. We, of course, do want to remind everyone that anytime that you're in PeopleSoft or any of our other systems, if you signed in, please make sure that you sign out. Your sign out button is at the top right. And just like any other systems, you wouldn't want to stay logged in. Please do remember, when you are through, to go ahead and use your sign out link up at the top. Thank you very much for watching today's presentation. We hope that it was beneficial, and have a good day.